I was super excited to finish lowering my truck. Yesterday, I had lowered the rear end and it came out perfect. The only thing left to do was to install the kit for the front end and eliminate this massive gap. But I would have never guessed that by the end of it, I would be scratching my head in disbelief. Everything started off good. I sprayed WD-40 on all the rusty bolts and began taking off the ball joint and loosening all the other bolts that were gonna come off. But when I tried hammering out the upper ball joint, the entire hub fell straight to the floor. God dang, nearly ripping the brake line in half. Thankfully, nothing seemed to be ripped, so I continued removing the 2 bolts on the caliper before removing the 3 bolts on the spindle. And I didn't know exactly how the new spindle was gonna make the truck lower, but I trusted it would make sense once everything was bolted on. So I bolted it onto the hub and tied the caliper onto the upper control arm, because for the next step, the entire strut had to come off. But that part was easy. There was 3 bolts on the inside of the engine bay that had to come off, followed by 2 bolts on the bottom of the lower control arm that had to come off. And once that 2 was out of the way, the next step was the most important step and the most scary. Because in order to replace the old coil with the new lowering coil, the old coil had to be compressed with a tool like this one from AutoZone. But as it turned out, the tool wasn't even made for bigger cars like trucks and SUVs, because the locking mechanism is intended for smaller cars with smaller coils, so it wasn't gonna work. Fortunately, there was a local shop nearby that was willing to swap them in for me for 60 bucks, but still, that wasn't even the worst part. After everything was put back together, I did the same thing to the other side, and that's when disaster struck. While attempting to put the wheel back on, it was not at all fitting, and it turned out that because the spindle and spring brought down everything a few inches, the lower ball joint was preventing the wheel from sitting flush. So now I'm stuck having to find bigger wheels if I want to drive this thing down the road.